Yo guys, what is going on? It is Invin here, and today what I'm bringing to you guys is a brand new video on some of the best ways that you can prepare yourselves and make some good gold before the March patch drops. Now, at this point, we're on the 21st of March, the day I'm recording this. That's the day this video goes up. If you're watching it a couple of days after, you should be fine. I think we've probably got around a week to a week and a half before we see this patch go live. So I've been scouring through the patch notes, the PTR notes, all of that good stuff to see sort of things that we can expect coming up in order to give you some preemptive ideas of what you could stock up on, things you might want to get yourselves ahead of time in terms of schematics that are going to be changed and therefore more valuable once this patch goes live. Now, before we fully jump into the video, if you are new to the channel, make sure you go down below and press the big red subscribe button. It'd be really much appreciated. It massively helps to support me and my content here on the channel. And if you do go on to enjoy today's video, don't forget to drop me a like down below as well, as that is also super helpful. And without further ado, let's jump into this video. So the first thing that I'm going to show you guys and I'm going to talk about here is the arena key materials. Some of you guys will be excited to know that these little blooming things that you see every single time you're in a Genesis expedition that are currently gold are going to be going down to epic, but that's not the point I'm making here. It's going to be about the arena key materials. Now, this point is kind of twofold. So the first reason is that these are going to be less of them required per key to craft. So when you go down to the stone cutting table, you're going to require less materials to craft each key. So essentially they're going to be slightly less valuable from that. So that's going to be really good. It's going to mean that these ones down here, for example, the Siren Tuning Orb, you're going to need less runestone, you're going to need less fancy shells in order to create this. Now, on top of that, you're also going to be able to get these entire orb drops. So whether it's Siren or Manicious or even the Protectors, any of these you'll be able to get as drops from the relevant elite zone areas. And that, again, will decrease the value of these. You know, obviously, sometimes they're going to be a pretty hard drop to get, and some other players will get more lucky than others, etc. But because there's going to be more accessibility to these orbs, it's generally going to be expected that the price of the materials will drop, at least initially. So if you have got some that you've been waiting to sell, now might be a good time for that. Now, before we jump any further into the video, I'm just going to acknowledge the obvious, which is that my coin balance is only sat at about 6k just now, which is pretty low. But as you guys can see, I've got all of my main set gear down here in the inventory, and a lot of that is legendary. So I have been working on spending quite a lot more than I'd like to admit. I think about 300 to 350,000 on that. So yeah, we were up there. Now we're back down again, but obviously I'm going to take my own advice and try and make some money off these tips as well. But the second thing here that's going to be really important is ammunition, and particularly looking at the Orichalcum cartridges. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Blunderbuss does use Orichalcum bullets, or any bullets, and they are adding a new feature with this patch, which is going to be infinite ammo. Now, this infinite ammo replaces the tier 1 variant of the bullets or the arrows that you use, and as such will have a 1x modifier. Now, this is great. It means you've got infinite ammo, particularly when you're doing things like grinding up the weapon XP, or you're playing Outpost Rush or whatever. You might not particularly want to use up the Orichalcum arrows or cartridges because these can be very expensive. Now, that being said, obviously when you're going into, you know, maybe you want to sweat an OPR, maybe you're going for a territory push and you want to take people out, maybe it's an actual war or invasion, you are going to want these Orichalcum ammos of whichever type you want. And the reason we're particularly looking at the bullets or the cartridges here is because, like I said there, the Blunderbuss is going to be using these. These obviously provide you the 1.2x damage modifier, and with them being a second weapon and these new weapons are always popular, you can probably bet a bottom dollar that they're going to be pretty expensive. Now, if we look at them already, on my server, the Orichalcum cartridges start at 1.39 each, so these can be pretty expensive. Now, on top of this, that is for, you know, per one, and you can get up to 500 in a stack currently. After this update, you're going to be able to get 1,000 in a stack, so people are going to be buying more of them up. Now, of course, if you are able to craft these and you're able to get the materials cheaper, I would recommend doing that because you are going to make some money there. Or if you've got someone on your server and you're someone who checks the prices regularly, you know that it's gone down a lot in price from what it previously was, you can almost guarantee that this is going to go up when the Blunderbuss is released. So if you can buy some on the cheap, you might want to do that as well. But take it however you'd like. I would just recommend getting involved in the bullet market because you are going to make some very good cash there. Now, the next thing here is going to be the materials for building the Blunderbuss. I'm actually currently on the live server, so you guys will be able to see. I am not able to see it here, and it would be in the engineering table. Now, you're going to need the metal, so obviously Orichalcum for those high-end ones, or indeed that Asmodeum. Then you're going to need a bit of leather and a bit of wood as well, so your glittering ebony, your runic leather, etc. to make those high-end ones. If you are somebody that is capable of crafting a 595 to 600 piece, these are going to be very, very valuable for those first few days when people are still leveling it up, still trying it out. It's going to soar in popularity, at least for players to try these out. So if you are able to craft some really, really good ones, this is going to make a lot of sense. So obviously, you're probably going to be stocking up on your dailies anyway. You know, your Asmodeum, your runic leather, and your glittering ebony. But if you do see any particularly cheap and you've been kind of holding off on it, or indeed you're not even doing your own dailies, make sure you do, because if you are able to craft these max ones, they're going to be super sought after, and they are going to turn you a good profit. Now, with that as well, one thing you can look at is the craft mods, and of course, you know, some of these are going to be pretty expensive as it is. If we're looking at things, for example, like Keen, these jagged animal claws on most servers are already skyrocket high prices because Keen is one of the best ones you can get. But if you're looking at something like a Chilled Fang here, these are Vorpal, which increases headshot damage. It's not a bad thing to have on. I don't know if I'd necessarily roll it, so maybe not that as a perfect example, but something that would be good, maybe Enchanted, maybe you want Life Stealing, maybe you want Refreshing Move. Any of those that you're able to pick up for a cheaper price than usual, again, if you're someone that watches the market, or it's a cheap price in general, those are going to be super good because, of course, you're going to want the weapon and ability perks when this Blunderbuss does drop, but having some really, really good 595 to 600 pieces with at least one guaranteed good perk is always going to be good, so keep your eyes peeled for those. As always, with those good perk mods and craft mods, you want to keep an eye out for them. Now, this next one is a little bit of a rogue shout in the first instance here, but it's actually going to be getting a stockpile of Hyssop. Now, personally, I would recommend actually going and gathering this. There is a ton of it. My favourite spot is in First Light, just next to the settlement. There is literal hundreds down there. It's very easy to get a good stockpile, and of course, you know, you can get some of the rare drops, so the herbs and spices and such from that as well, depending on the location that you gather in. But essentially, the reason for this is, if we go down to the potions section, is the Alkahests. Now, as you will see, these require Hyssop and water, and currently these do not give you the proper chance to craft, even when you are at the maximum level, which you can see I'm not quite there myself, but when you are, it's a little bit under what it is intended to be. This is going to be fixed with the next update, which will mean once you get up to level 200, you'll have a 20% chance to get additional craft items when you craft these Alkahests, which is going to mean people are going to have more access to crafting potions. Now, the way you can get on top of this, even if you're not someone like myself that has max arcana, is by stocking up on Hyssop, whether you want to buy it super cheap if you know the prices, or like I said, my preferred method, actually going and grabbing it for yourself. It's going to be super worthwhile because people are going to need 8, and this is for the powerful one, and then for the infused one, you're going to need 10 per craft, and people are probably going to be crafting this a lot more often. Like I said, I would gather it because it's not a surefire way to go up on every server, but the majority of servers you're going to see a big rise in this. And again, whilst you're out and about, or if you've got a bit of free time while you're doing something in Windswood, just grab a little bit of extra water. 100 to 200 water you should be able to sell, because again, people are lazy, and when this drops, if they do want to go ahead and grab this, they're probably just going to buy the water, or some people just don't have the time to go collecting stuff. So if you can help out there by selling that, you're going to net a decent profit as well. So just a couple of things to look out for. Now, the next thing here is going to be things from the faction shop. As you can see, I'm a big noob on the left-hand side here. I haven't even unlocked tier 5 yet. That is because we only switched recently. However, I do need to get this unlocked ASAP. But things like your Asmodeum chisels, 5,000 tokens, or more importantly, your chunk of consecrated iron, 3,000 tokens and 10 gold. These are going to be really important because if you do want to get them and you do want to sell them, particularly the chisels, the consecrated iron is pretty cheap, but the chisels can sell for a decent amount because people don't want to farm the tokens as often. If you do want to get ahead of doing that, do that before the update drops, because when we do get this March patch, the first 3 faction quests per day are going to give you 5 times the amount of faction tokens for completing them. So like you get 10x the amount of gold for the first 3 faction missions you do right now, you're also going to get 5 extra tokens. So this one right here, for example, you would get 1,875 tokens. That would be times 5 for the first 3 times you do it per day. And if you hover over it, you can see obviously 13.5 coins. So that would be 135 coins for the first 3 you do per day. However, with the coin bonus and with the token bonus, I would recommend taking yourselves all the way up to probably either Shattered Mountains or Eden's Grove, because these are generally pretty good, or indeed you can go down to Reekwater and Ebonscale Reach. These give you the most faction kind of tokens and gold, so you can maximize your 3 per day for when that comes out. But that is going to mean that anything that requires faction tokens to buy from this faction shop is probably going to be in much more higher surplus, and therefore is going to be a cheaper price. So if you do want to get ahead on stuff like that, maybe particularly, you know, looking at the orbs, 10,000 needed for this mutation orb here, people are going to be able to get on these much more easily. So if you are trying to sell your orbs or sell their access to these, if you're going to sell part membership to your group or whatever people are doing these days, gypsum orbs, things like that, I know these are not tradable, but you are going to be able to get these much more easily when this comes out. So just bear that in mind. If there's anything you do want to sell, probably now is the chance to do it. Now, the next thing here is going to be our trusty hearty meals. Now, as you guys can see on screen, or any variation of food this is actually going to concern, these will still be great for PvP, expeditions, etc. But with the new out of combat system that is coming with the March update, is going to mean that when you are out of combat, so in other words, you don't have the little cross swords next to your health bar, you are going to get a regeneration buff that is going to allow you to regenerate very quickly up to full HP, or at least a lot more quicker than what we're used to at the moment. Now, this is going to mean people are much less often spamming these hearty meals. Right now, we're pretty much spamming them for all regen. Obviously, when you're playing things like OPR, you're in a war, you're in an invasion, you're in an elite zone, you're in an expedition, all of that other content, you're still going to want to have these hearty meals, so they're not going to drop in price massively, but you are going to see them being bought slightly less frequently because players are actually going to have a little bit more boost to that natural regen. Therefore, if you have got a surplus of these that you're waiting to sell, I would probably do that ahead of the update. Not all servers will be affected by this, so do just watch your prices, but now is as good a time as any to get these sold if you have got some waiting to go. Just bear it in mind, might be slightly less often, but as I say, may not affect all servers. So the next one is a big one, and this is that all storage chests are going to have their capacities doubled, which is actually a huge buff to these chests. So as you can see, if we look at the golden steel storage chest here, this one is one of the more popular ones and is currently selling for about 5,555 gold. Once these have their capacity doubled, they're going to be in much higher demand. Lots of players are going to be buying into them for all of their houses because it's going to be super worthwhile. Even getting, you know, the lower tier storage chests are still going to be super worth it because they are going to still give you a good bonus to your storage. Now, as well as this, if you can actually get the schematics for this, so for example, the schematic for gold steel storage, there is none on here. These are very expensive when they do go up, and they are super rare. But if you are able to get your hands on even some of the less good ones, so the lower tier ones, for schematics, and you're someone that's able to craft these with your furnishing level, I would highly recommend it because, again, they're going to be in high demand and you are going to make a profit from them. Once this update goes live and people catch on that they're going to give you double the bonus that they gave before, because if you're anything like me, most of your storages are going to look like this Windswood one right here, where we're pretty much at max capacity. So having these doubled is going to be great. Yes, most people already have some chests, but the chances are they're going to invest particularly in those higher tier ones because of this update. So bear that in mind. Now, finally, here we're going to be looking at gems, and particularly we're going to be looking at the elemental gems and the slash, strike, and thrust gems. If we take a look at some cut pristine gems here, let's take amethyst for an example. These right now are 162, and to be honest, this is mainly because of the expedition mutations. If we have a look at something along the lines of maybe the lightning gem, obviously these are a lot less expensive, and that is because generally there isn't a weapon that does too much lightning damage at the moment other than gems or the attunement perks. But some of these more popular ones that are going to be more useful, these are all getting a buff, so they're all going to 3, 4, 5, and 6% depending on the tier that you have, obviously 6% being that pristine level, and this is different to how they were before. It's giving them a buff, and it's exactly the same for the slash, strike, and thrust gems as well. So people haven't been buying these up as much because they're only given a certain amount, so like 3.8% for example, damage absorption to ice. This is going to be shooting all the way up to 5 or 6%, which is going to mean that these are actually a pretty sturdy approach to stacking these on your armor and actually having a fairly decent amount of elemental resistance. I'm personally looking at the ice ones because these are 70 gold on my server, and we all know right now how good the ice gauntlet is. It's looking like it's still going to be good. You do have to read through all of the patch notes, and when this is fully released, the patch notes will be available for all of the weapons, so we can see which of the elements is probably going to be the most dominant. But if you can pick up any early gems, I wouldn't recommend buying them, but if you do get any as drops between now and the update, keep hold of all your tier 5 gems because there may just be some that come really into fruition with this buff and update that people want on their armor that you can now start to make a good price from as a result of this March update. So that is going to be it for today's video, guys. Hopefully you have enjoyed and hopefully you found it useful for, you know, few things to look out for, a few things to either collect as you go in, if you get them as drops, keep hold of them, or maybe some things to invest in if it's kind of up your street in terms of the storage chests or the ammo, for example, if you want to craft those. It's entirely up to you what you do, and of course you do want to check the prices on your own servers, whether that be now or once the update has gone live. But these are a few of my favourite suggestions based off the notes we have so far of things that are going to be changing and becoming more valuable. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed. If you have, please do be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below, as always, as it really, really does help to support me and the content here on the channel. And other than that, that is going to be it for today. So I would like to thank you all for watching. Thank you for your time, and I will catch you again very, very shortly on a brand new upload. Take care, guys, and peace.